Hi everyone, I'm Crina Okumus and this is the podcast. This is an interview series with known personalities from all over the world by exploring questions about life and learning how these people are dealing with pain, as we are all do, pressure and challenges in their private and professional life. I really hope you take a nugget of wisdom or two and you are improving your own life for better. On today's podcast, I'm speaking with Angela Lindvall, American model, actress, yogi, doula, and the mother of two beautiful boys. She was featured on many top magazine covers like Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar, Marie Claire. Angela was always the world's top designer's favorite, for example, Karl Lagerfeld, Miuccia Prada, and Stella McCartney. She worked for the Victoria's Secret fashion shows and also appeared in the Sport Illustrated. She really did almost everything in fashion industry. Today on the podcast, we are talking about her daily practice of self-care, another view on the fashion industry after becoming a mother, her new passion project called Peace Begins in Me, and other topics.
Time is something that, in one sense, it's an illusion because we're eternal beings, but while we're here in this body, it's impermanent, right? So let's just say that you have a impermanent amount of time, like a bank account, and every day it goes down by $1, right?
Yeah. Right? Yeah, I know.
And when
this.
we think about this, like most people place value on money and I don't know, power or fame, but really this idea of time, how valuable our time is, to me, just hit me so strong. That what are we doing with our time and the people that we love, and so that's, for me, one of the most valuable things is that value of time.
Now, let's get to my conversation with Angela Lindvall.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's so wonderful to be able to connect with so much distance between us and be able to see and be intimate, even though there's space.
We definitely, once we have to meet and hug you, because we already had some beautiful projects together, and thank you for that with Omnes.live, and I'm so grateful for that. So hopefully once I will have the moment when I can give you a very big hug.
Oh, I hope so too. I hope so too.
So Angela, let's start it a little bit with the beginning. For the ones that they don't know you, which I don't know how many they are, let's start with I think 16 or 16 years old when you start to enter in the fashion industry. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, that was probably one of the first extraordinary experiences that led to such huge life changes. I grew up in a small town. There was 5 girls in my family. I'm number 2, and then I have a brother. But I was really like the tomboy of the family, spending a lot of time in nature, catching frogs, climbing trees. And so my older sister had discovered this idea of modeling, but neither of us really knew what it was. I don't even think we really looked at fashion magazines. And so I kind of just got tagged along with her, and we did this big fashion show in Kansas City that all of these agents from around the world came to watch. And I was literally like dumbfounded when they were interested in me coming to New York to do this. I'm like, really? Me? I didn't even know you needed to be tall or thin or any of that. So that was the beginning of really an extraordinary journey into myself, into the world. Just really extraordinary, being able to travel to so many places and meet so many incredible people. But there was times that I felt a little bit like a fish out of water,
Mm-hmm. But what did you want to do? Like, what was your dream during that time?
Well, I was more of a creative type myself. So I was really into drawing and painting and working with nature. But I was so young, I hadn't really thought about what my long-term career was going to be. However, when I moved to New York and I started modeling, I got very interested in science and ecology. And back then was when our computers had still the green screens, and the printed paper was like corrugated paper with the holes on each side. And I got pretty obsessed with researching about our environment and what's in our food and what's in our water. I think because I was in New York City and I just questioned so much. I'm like, where does all of our trash go? And I really wasn't aware of the environmental degradation we were facing on the planet. I was quite naive. So I became very passionate about that topic around the age of 17.
I love that. It is so interesting that you started already on the age of 17, because we will discuss after. This is a topic that you are developing and it's present in your life even stronger now.
It wasn't a big conversation in the mainstream at the time. And of course, I was, in the high fashion ring of the circus. And that really, there was challenges with that. But I think ultimately it really brought me a lot of strength in terms of knowing who I really am through those challenges, because you get so identified with your external form. And you're judged, or you make money based on the way that you look. So, there was challenging times to differentiate that external image that people saw in the magazine is not who I am. So I think it really led to a deeper self-discovery of what my true power is and who I truly am. And sometimes I think it is challenge that allows us to grow. It's that pressure that we get put under in life that really is what makes us become a diamond,
Yeah, so beautiful. So you believe that these challenges basically help you to move further than just the fashion industry.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to all the experiences and opportunities that industry brought me to travel the world and be exposed to so many different ways of life and people, like pretty much the extremes on either end. I'd sometimes go to third world countries and other times be at like the Cannes Film Festival, so
amazing.
It was interesting to see the dichotomy, and it taught me a lot about people as well. Just being around so many different diverse cultures and personalities, it taught me, traveling, that there's this similarity and thread that connects us all, even though we might come from a different culture or speak a different language. And I really appreciate that.
I love it. If we are still staying in the fashion industry, I'm very curious about some topics here. First of all, Victoria's Secret topic. Is it really true that before of a fashion show, you really have to prepare, you have a personal trainer, like all these stories that they are around? I'm sure that everybody is really curious to know.
Yeah, you do. You know that you're going to be walking down a runway with very little clothes on. So you think about that, and you're training and eating really well and preparing yourself. But you also have to remember, most of the girls that you see walking down the runway, they're between the age of 17 and 25. So I don't know if you remember being that age. It was much easier. You didn't have to work as hard at it. So
that's true. And I really liked one example that you mentioned once, being in Chanel and doing shopping for free, basically. How was that?
Oh yeah. Oh my
God. I just
think back and I'm like, I can't believe I got to do that. Yeah, I actually got to do it twice. They are such a generous company. And I did, I think, about 3 or 4 of their advertising campaigns in a row. And they were like, yeah, just go to the store, take what you want. I'm like, really?
So how was that? Because somehow you want to take it, but in the same time, you cannot just empty the store, right?
I didn't empty the store, but I got some very nice things that I still have to
I
this
love
day.
it.
Yeah.
That's a very good part of it. I love it. And you know what is very interesting? Because I was in the fashion industry, and somehow it's kind of a conflict with what you did and what you are doing now. How did you deal with that?
Well, it's been a conflict for a long time. I mentioned, being a passionate environmentalist as well. And I know the topic is a lot more spoken about now than it was 15, 20 years ago. Yeah. But I did feel conflicted in the sense of like, well, how can I represent a brand that is not in line with what I believe or products that I'd actually buy? And I think especially as I got older, I really started choosing to work with brands that were more in line with what I believed in, like John Hardy or DKNY Pure. And now I'm working with, it's a small company, but I just love what they do. They're called Article 22. And they're taking shrapnel from landmines in Laos and working with the Laotian people, and they're creating jewelry. And so I was just really moved by what they're doing. And that's really where the name Peace Begins in Me started, was from this jewelry line, because I thought it really represented this alchemy of transformation, taking something as dense and negative as war shrapnel and transforming it into a message of peace. And it just made me think so much about how each one of us as individuals, how we really do impact the whole. Like how you feel, or how whatever transformation you might be going through as an individual, healing your heart, you're actually healing all of our hearts. And that resonates with me so much, just that individual impact that we have on the whole.
How connected we are. I mean, probably you could already feel that when we did even Omnes together, like the power of connectedness it's something so beautiful and so strong. That's true.
Yeah, and we're living in a world right now where we're faced with so much fear, with so much uncertainty. And, I like to think about our potential, because of course, all of those feelings are valid because there's real things going on the planet. However, I love this power of potential and the power of imagination and vision that we can hold to say, okay, this is what we're dealing with, but through this incredible visionary aspect that we have within us, what kind of world would we like to see? What would we like to create? And that's really the power of individuals and connectedness.
I love this. I love this. And it's depending only of us. We stay a little bit more into the fashion, and then I promise we are moving further. Absolutely. Because I have so many topics to speak with you about. But if we have now some young girls that they are listening, what will be the advices that you will give them after based off your amazing fashion experience? Because you did everything. You were in the cover of all the magazines that you could ever imagine, from Vogue to Elle to Sport Illustrated, everywhere. Like, you basically did really everything. By the way, is it something that you didn't do and you are sorry about? Like, was it something that you missed?
There was one brand I never worked for that I thought I was perfect for, which is Ralph Lauren. Like, I'm like a perfect Ralph Lauren girl, but I mean, I guess you can't do everything. I had the opportunity to work with a lot of incredible brands and people. But in terms of advice for young girls or women that, that want to go into fashion world or even don't, like I mentioned before, I think the number one thing is around that aspect of value and valuing ourselves, because I think oftentimes people look at a model from the outside and they think, oh my God, she's got it all. She's beautiful. She's making money. She's got, notoriety and prestige. And I believe oftentimes it's these women that are feeling the pressure maybe more than anyone, because their value is placed on this external beauty and and really all these external things, you know. And it is so beautiful to use clothing and jewelry to adorn yourself. And I think adorning ourselves as women and men is really important to celebrate our beauty. But when we start to think that's our value, or think that that's what's gonna make us better, it never is. It really is an inside job, and it's that inner power and that inner energy that beauty comes from. And I really learned that whenever I started doing Kundalini yoga as well, because I would meet these women with just these auras that were, you know, just shining so bright. I'm like, wow, these are some of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. And I'd spent a long time in the fashion industry. So I think that would probably be my biggest advice, is to understand what your true value is, and not identify with these external things that this world and industry have been triggering all women, you know, of this thing like, oh, if you buy this product, then you'll be beautiful, or you need this, or you need that. And it's like, we're constantly never good enough, and we're picking ourselves apart and seeing that little wrinkle here, or that little roll over here. And I think that that's a big part that I hopefully will evolve and change over the years, as women are coming more and more together and connecting and supporting each other in those kinds of ways.
I really hope so, even though with the social media, somehow this is going even further. So if you don't have this base that you mentioned and really figure out who you truly are, it's quite difficult. And I don't know if you could really give even some more advices, like how can we discover who we are? Because sometimes it's like, I feel that this we should really learn maybe kindergarten or first class.
Oh my gosh,
you know,
I
why
agree.
We don't do that?
Yeah, well, I think we could learn some really basic things, like communication skills would be an incredible thing to learn from the time we're young, because those are things as an adult I'm still learning.
Yes.
You know, conscious communication with my children, with my partner. And yes, how to go inward, how to find who we truly are without all these external identifications. And we're really having to relearn all the basics. We're having to learn how to breathe again. We're learning how to eat. We're learning how to sleep. And these are just like basic qualities that in some ways we've become so disconnected from the core of life itself. And we've become so busy. So, yeah. I think being in the fashion industry, there were things that were very, very challenging, like having to fit inside clothes that were so tiny and be compared to so many other women, and having all these eyes looking at you. But I think ultimately, like I mentioned before, it really is what helped me discover myself, because I had to go beyond that and go inward and rise above. And fear has been like a really big thing for me lately, my biggest teacher and my biggest guiding force, really, to move past fear and to step up to it. Well, recently it's been stepping into the path of teaching, you know, and I finally did that last year and launched Peace Begins in Me. And now I'm being called to teach online because of the world we live in. And I was so resistant, but I've been doing it. And it's like every time I push past that fear and I really sit with fear and look at it, like, what am I really afraid of? And I sit with the experience of everything. I'm like, oh, this really isn't that bad. And this courageous kind of warrior willpower comes out in me. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do it scared. I'm going to do it scared. And then it feels great afterwards.
But the result, at least from my side, when we did actually the live together, and you told me I'm a little bit scared, it was and it still is actually one of the best meditation that we had. And we had more than 150 teachers, and they were really like quite impressive. And people, they were just asking about you, and we were like, wow. It was so powerful,
yeah,
Angela.
I started crying after I got your message because I thought I had messed up on one of them because my sound, and my son was downstairs and he put on music or something. I'm like, oh my God. But I also,
No.
that some of my students that came as well, they were just so genuine, and watching people actually have an experience, the energy they walk in with. And then after we do our class and they open their eyes, that's what is just so moving for me. And I've had some classes of like influencer models, and they're the most challenging ones for me, the most rewarding too. I really
Of
like that
course,
challenge. Mhm.
I love
Yeah.
it. And you're so good in that. You're so good.
Thank you.
Honestly, I really love it. And I can't wait for a new meditation and follow your platform. I really have to join it as soon as
Oh
possible because
yeah.
I'm a
Well,
big
I'm
fan of.
hoping to have something up very soon. It will at least be like have some things there while I'm recording the others. So at least,
Perfect.
Yeah, you can check it out.
Perfect. I can't wait for more. How did you deal, Angela, with toxic relationships? And I'm speaking about girlfriends, kind of, especially in this industry. How could you feel it, and how could you deal with that, especially in the industry that you are part of it?
Well, I think at the time I actually would internalize and take things personally and question myself. And, I think a big part of my life has been learning healthy boundaries and healthy friendships, and learning how to set boundaries with people. And if someone doesn't respect my boundaries or my space, to know how to, in a healthy way, without getting involved in a toxic combat or whatever, to just walk away and maybe cut ties if you have to. But I think so often we identify our self-worth around what other people think, or what we think
Exactly.
other people think.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's what it is.
Yeah.
And we're never going to find it there. We're never going to find anything we're looking for outside of ourselves. It's like trying to catch an elusive butterfly, and you open your hands and there's nothing there. So for me, like this inward journey of when I discovered Kundalini Yoga, that's what gave me a lot of these tools and resources to build, I guess, that kind of will and build that internal power, and to open my heart center, to open up my intuitive centers, so that I had more of this capacity to deal with external pressures. And I guess that's like maybe a scientific or physiological way of explaining how that energy works, is creating the pressure from within and creating the energy from within, so that you have the capacity to deal with the external pressures. Because we live in a physical world. We're not just physical beings, but we move in this vessel, and this vessel carries us through life, and we do need to take care of this vessel, but we also have to take care of our energetic being, and our hearts, our feeling body, and our mind. And like you said, these aren't things, especially in the Western culture, that we're taught. So we're out seeking, and then we find.
Yeah. That's true. It was really happened to me because I really had a very, 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 very close friend. And I realized that it's not what I need around me. And I realized that when the word shame is very interesting in the relation with friends. And basically, when you really trust in that person and you really share something really personal, and that person actually doesn't have any empathy. Actually, during a meditation, I really had this beautiful sentence from Brené Brown that she said, I will read it because I don't want to make a mistake. If we share our story with someone who responds with empathy and understanding, shame can't survive. And I love it. It's just,
that gave me chills. Yeah.
It's so beautiful, but how, it's tough, especially when you care about some friends, but somehow maybe when you evaluate, or not evaluate, I don't want to sound somehow bad on the other side, but probably we just have to say goodbye to some people that we loved in the past,
and
right?
it's interesting because that aspect of vulnerability that Brené Brown talks about is so powerful, especially in intimate relationships with your partner or with close friends, because in order to feel understood or really share who you are, you have to allow that space of vulnerability. But like you said, like, we live in a culture that's so riddled with shame and guilt and judgment that those, and oftentimes I think it's our own shame, guilt, and judgment that we have for ourselves that then we end up projecting on someone else, because we're living with so much of that inside us. It's easier to look at you and pick out the things about you that you should be shameful of, because I don't want to look at mine. And this is all dysfunctional, relationship to oneself that gets carried through society and gets carried through, intimate relationships. And I've seen it a lot, especially where we're at right now. There's so much fear around this pandemic and so much judgment. And I mean, especially in America, I don't know what it's like in Europe, but there's a lot of politicizing of this and judging and separating. And I'm like, wow, can you imagine? This pandemic is hard enough as it is, but the separation that it's causing among people that love each other is just very sad.
It's super sad.
Yeah.
Let's move on something more happy now. And actually, it's so much about how powerful you took this decision about the motherhood part of your life. And we speak about the first Dakota, right?
Dakota,
he came into your life when you turned 22, right?
Yeah, I got pregnant at 22. I was at the height of my career.
Exactly.
I was pretty much told, like, if you have this baby, then your career's going to be over. Wow. And I was like, okay, well, I guess my career is going to be over then. And I also was going into motherhood knowing that I was doing it on my own initially. I ended up meeting a beautiful man while I was pregnant, and he became Dakota's father. So, that was a beautiful blessing, but I really went into it like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And every cell in my body told me, this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that this is continue even now, supporting many other women being a doula. How beautiful is that?
Yes.
That it was in you for such a long time and you developed it for so long.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of self-searching and questioning. Like I said, I was called so long to teach, but was resisting that. And I really was like, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And I was in this very deep meditation, and tears just started coming down my eyes, because the answer was so clear and so simple, that it's to be the mother. And it broke my heart in a way, because I was like, wow, as if that's not enough. You know what I mean? It's like the most important job that we have when we become mothers, and somehow it gets dismissed in a way, like, oh, like, you just, like, if you're not working all the time and you're just a mother, like, that is frowned upon in this world today. Yeah, and I'm not saying that that's what every woman should do, but it's it just, that coming to me was so powerful. And that's when I felt so secure in who I am and what I'm doing, and decided even more to hold these spaces for women to come together in these women's circles and to start my doula training.
So how is this for you? Like, how do you feel it? How do you feel to be such a intimate support for this miracle that is happening?
Well, I gotta say,
time?
I mean, I've only doulaed 2 babies or mothers at this point, but somewhere around like 3-4 in the morning, you might be like, why am I doing this? But when the baby's delivered and that magic, I mean, it's the veils open between the seen and the unseen realms, and yeah, being there to support the mother through this most incredible process of her life, this magical journey. It feels so good. It feels so good. And I feel like we need more of that, and more education around the process of pregnancy and birth itself, we've been doing this since the beginning of time, and it's turned into a medical procedure, and it's actually not. I mean, it's good we have the medical world to support us, and if we have any complications, but it's the beauty of life. It's the beauty of life.
Yeah, that's true. So beautiful. And
I actually even thought about it, and I don't think I'm ready for this yet, but did you know there's also death doulas? So you can support people through their transition. Wow. Yeah.
And it's so needed. Like it's what we need more than everything at the end of the day. Why this is not existing? Why there are existing so many other things?
I think we've become so removed. There was a time, all of us in every culture, we had more connection to the magic of life. We had more ritual. We had more, this relationship to birth and to death and to family. And now it's like, we're so busy in this busy world, that we've lost touch with so much of this, I guess, esoteric kind of knowledge in a way, and rites, passages, initiations, and I don't know, I think it would be really beautiful to see some of those come back in a modern world. And I do believe also even COVID and this pandemic has invited us to really go inward and to sit with ourselves and to look at our shadow and to evaluate our lives and what we do with our time. Time is something that, in one sense, it's an illusion because we're eternal beings, but while we're here in this body, it's impermanent, right? So let's just say that you have a impermanent amount of time, like a bank account, and every day it goes down by $1, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I know.
And when we think about this, like most people place value on money and I don't know, power or fame, but really this idea of time, how valuable our time is, to me, just hit me so strong. That what are we doing with our time and the people that we love, and so that's, for me, one of the most valuable things is that value of time.
So powerful and so true. Somehow in some moments we easily forget about it. I don't know why we have this, I don't know if this has happened to you, but especially now I'm in this time when I'm like, okay, we have to be grateful. I have to. And then I just enter in a routine and I forget. And then something bad unfortunately has to happen, or like a kick, something to remind me again and say, oh, wait, I have to continue in this direction.
But it's normal. It's like our conditioning that we live in. And that's where, for me, like the idea of a daily practice is so important, because that's where I stop, I center, I actually connect and charge, and I remember, and I might forget again 20 minutes later when I'm downstairs and my teenager talks back to me or something, I might, but at least I took that time to really charge and connect and to become still, to remember, remember our infinity and remember this beautiful resource of life source energy that we have available to us all the time.
Love it. So, because you mentioned this, what is your daily routine? Like when you wake up in the morning? I know you're a big fan of a cold shower, right?
I have this little space set up as my morning. So my partner and we're not necessarily ready to do like a full practice first thing in the morning, but we'll generally sit down and come into our space, and I'll use my little, my singing bowl. And we'll just tune in with a mantra, and then we'll go into the steam shower and we'll do a little meditating in there. I like killing two birds with one stone, talking about time and being efficient with time. I use a lot of things I don't like to do as my meditation now. So I do like steaming, but you get two things done at once, and then I end in the cold shower.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of cold shower, and I have to say for a few months I do the same, and it's
incredible,
I love it.
Right?
I love it. I love it.
Supposedly what you're doing is re-flooding your whole endocrine system, which is the guardians of your health. You know, it's where we produce our hormones and all of these things. You're flooding them with fresh blood whenever you go in the cold shower.
You feel it after. You could really feel it. So,
yeah.
And after that, I know that food is a very important topic for you. So I really would love to speak a little bit about that. I love your lifestyle. Actually, my dream is to have a farm as well. Tell us a little bit about the food topic.
Well, I went through, actually, since I got pregnant with Dakota, that's probably when I really started gravitating towards what I was eating. I think oftentimes when women get pregnant, they do. But I went through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and became a certified health coach. I haven't actually been coaching anyone, but I learned so much. And what I liked the most about this particular school was there are thousands and thousands of philosophies on food, right? And different dietary theories, and what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. So I really like this intuitive way of listening to our bodies and knowing what's right for us. And I also love this 80-20 rule, because oftentimes there is, if we go back to the topic of shame and guilt, right, that gets associated with our behaviors, especially around food. You know, a lot of people have these unhealthy eating habits or relationships to food that are like just pressured on with guilt. So I'm not 100% kind of person. I love eating what grows on the earth in its whole form. So I love eating squash and vegetables and greens and, you know, whole grains. That's my primary diet. I do eat some meat, but I try to make sure it's from a very, very good source. And, but at the end of the day, I also eat some bad things sometimes, you know.
So you eat sugar, you eat gluten?
Not a lot, but I will. Yeah. If it's in an environment that I'm like in Italy and there's an amazing bowl of pasta, I'll eat it and I'll take some enzymes. But I listen to my body, because if I eat gluten every day for weeks on end, I start getting really bad bags under my eyes, my joints start to hurt, and I don't want to feel that way. So, you know, it's like I try to make 80% of my diet eating really healthy, high vibes, and then 20% I give myself that space to enjoy whatever it is that might come in front of me that sounds good, that's like a nostalgic thing from my childhood or whatever, like comfort food, I guess, without feeling guilty about it. And that was the same for any practice. I used to beat myself up if I didn't do my daily practice every day. And it's like, okay, that's counterintuitive. I'm beating myself up for not meditating. Like, so, you know, for that, I started with like, you know what, just do 5 minutes a day. And that was huge for me, because 5 minutes was hard to make an excuse not to do. And generally when I'd sit down for 5, I'd stay for longer. And that's how I got into really establishing a daily practice without that resistance.
Okay, so I think that we have a lot regarding this topic. I want to go back to the time when you had Dakota. Okay. And I don't want to let the things in a way understandable, because you went back to fashion industry after that.
I did.
Quite successful, I would say. How was that from your eyes? Because basically, I suppose you changed even much more after being a mother. And how was it for you, this part? And I like to give an example to others, because you had the power to say, I'm following my intuition, I will have this baby. And you prove even more than that you had even much more bigger success after that.
Yeah. And you know what? That's one of the first things in my life, and it's continued in many subjects. When I trust my heart and my intuition, even if everyone else around is saying that doesn't make sense, or there's more money over there, or it always works out when I trust and have that faith. So Dakota was definitely, you know, an example of that kind of miraculous situation. But I remember to this day, after I went back I was backstage at a fashion show after I'd had Dakota. And for a moment, I was like, whoa, everyone's changed. And then I realized, I was like, no, you've changed. And it just became so clear to me about our perceptions and how our perceptions and our thoughts and our feelings create our reality. Because prior, I was so aware of the drama or the judgments or this diva or that diva. And I was so sensitive to all of that, that when I went back after giving birth and now being responsible for a child, I had this maternal power inside of me. So it's like, I pushed a baby out. I can handle anything. So I had this level of confidence and security within inside myself that all of a sudden my focus and my feelings and my thoughts and my awareness and perception was not on all of those things that used to really upset me and bother me. Now I was standing in this very grounded space and my whole experience had changed. I thought everybody else changed, but I was like, wow, actually it's me that changed. So it was very interesting to see how, one, becoming a mother, like you asked, changed me so much, but how our perceptions and our thoughts and our feelings create our reality.
Wow, that was a powerful one.
Mm-hmm. And it also made my work have more value. I knew why I was doing my work. It gave me way more sense of strength and confidence to say no. Like I knew what was more important, whether it was saying no to going to an invitation somewhere or to do a job. I just would say no much easier because, you know, I had these little beings that needed mama.
So yeah, after that, we had the second beautiful boy, Sebastian.
Mm-hmm.
I love both names, I have to say.
Thank you.
How, as a mother, how do you are dealing with the whole education for the kids? Like how you do with that? Can you give some advices for some young mothers? How you do it? Because it's such a big responsibility.
It really is. And like I mentioned before, we don't live in a society so much that supports the mother staying home with her children, especially when they're very young. And I don't place any judgment on that or say this is how it should be, but I just recognize that there's not a lot of support around that. And it is a very natural thing. So I think a lot of women feel so torn when she gives birth and then has to go back to work and struggle between being a mother and working and trying to do all that. So that I know is something that we as mothers struggle with a lot. And then who do we trust our children with when we are working and when it's time for them to go to school? Where do we send them to school? And, you know, I'm now on the other end of it. Dakota graduated high school this year. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird time to be graduating, but yeah, it's pretty incredible to have an 18-year-old son. But I put my kids in the Steiner school. And again, I'm an 80-20 person. I'm not dogmatic in yoga. I'm not dogmatic on education. I try to steer clear of all that. But I love the philosophies of Rudolf Steiner of really allowing children to develop their senses and to come from this right brain that they're in and slowly develop into this more logical thinking and holding this beautiful space for them to discover who they are. I loved that. But then, of course, you know, you can't isolate your kids from the world we live in. So they went to Waldorf, but they traveled and they saw death. They saw many things. And then they went to public high school, you know, and I had to kind of just relinquish control in some ways because there's a certain level of exposure, especially in Los Angeles, to certain types of culture. And when you're a teenager, or even when you're very young, you know, you're identifying who you are through your friends and you want to fit in and be accepted. And so, you know, I would love to see our education systems implement more of this natural way of educating and feeding our bodies and our souls. I'd love to see more of that happen in I guess public school systems. And I'd love to see our children supported through these times that are very hard for them, discovering who they are. And part of that as mothers, I'm learning with where I'm at in the phase of parenting right now, is to trust and allow. Because my 15-year-old, he would prefer to spend a lot of his time in his room. And I don't let him spend it all. I'm like, he'll go out and ride his motorcycle, he'll go see friends and stuff. But I also have to allow that time of separation. And it's so sad. It's such a weird phase of parenting I'm in, because in one way, you don't want your children staying at home sucking on the tit forever. You want to feel good about them, the being that you guided and going out on their own. But it's just, wow, I never knew that this was going to come. I never knew. I never was prepared for this. And it's a bittersweet thing,
Yeah.
They're
I already started to see it with 7-year-old.
How old is yours? Yeah,
7. So I already started a little bit, not like you, but I start to really see it. And it's so much about dealing with the fear topic, like you mentioned, something will happen, but I cannot keep her at home all the time. So it's about trust at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And really empowering them. One of the first workshops I ever did was a teen workshop, actually. Hardest workshop to do with teenagers.
Because they are very honest too.
They're honest and they're rebels. And I actually used that as part of my way of breaking through what I wanted to teach them, because their rebellious spirit is actually very powerful. It's their power to make choices. And that's something I've instilled in my boys, is about your power of choice. At the end of the day, you get to choose how you want to live your life, and all your choices impact your life. It impacts others around you. So that power of choice is something that I really like to see being developed in our youth, so that it's not coming from this place of needing to rebel for the sake of rebelling, but feeling empowered and I think that this generation, of our children, they're going to be the ones that take this world and just turn it around with new technologies, new ways of thinking, new ways of being. And I think they're ready. It's interesting because, like my son mentioned, the 18-year-old, that ever since he was little, there's been all these movies about the end of the world in 2020 and, hurricanes and tsunamis. And it's like, you've kind of environmental degradation, all of these things they've had to kind of grow up with as their reality. But they're almost like, don't even think twice. They're like, that's stupid. Why would you do that? So I really think they'll be the ones that come in with these new technologies and bring some beautiful gifts and healing to our planet.
I believe so too about that.
I mean, I do worry about the social media stuff that you mentioned as well, because these devices that are sucking our kids in, and, our kids were like experiment children. We didn't really know, but I almost feel like it would be good to put regulations on it, even for teenagers. I mean, it's probably too late for me to do that now, but if we had more education and information as parents, we can say, okay, here's a way to avoid this addiction and association that comes with the devices. We're only learning now. Yeah.
And we have such a big responsibility, because they can turn their life if they don't learn it in a proper way. That's the thing.
It can be a tool.
Yeah.
It can be a wonderful tool, but it can also be something that takes us in all kinds of weird directions.
It's a really tough one. Yeah, that's a tough one. I discovered something that it's very strong to my personal experience, when one morning I just received a call. Everything was perfect in my life, and one morning I just received a call that my father had a car accident. And my whole life completely changed. I was super close to him. And I know that you had a similar experience with your younger sister, which is actually very similar age like I am. And I would like to discuss a little bit about the grieving part and how you went through that and what advices you will give me and the ones that they are listening to go further to this.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear about your loss. And I
Thank you,
know
Angela.
exactly prior to having
As
that kind
well.
of loss myself,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't even know what that feels like. But it was honestly like being hit upside the head with a brick when you're not looking. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, you just don't even believe it. And I think what Audrey, my sister, brought to me, I mean, I would rather not know this and still have her here, but she brought me so much wisdom and grace and understanding of, well, what I spoke about before, this impermanence of life and our time and what we do with our time and what we value. And honestly, she changed my life. She changed my life, made me just rethink everything. And there was a space of her that in those months after she died, that her presence was still very strong. And it was almost like a telecommunication I had with her, which was quite profound. But I guess I developed a more intimate relationship with death itself, because death is something everybody's afraid of, and it's taboo in a way, and we don't talk about it. But guess what? Every single one of us are going to experience it.
It's the only thing that is happening for sure.
It's happening for sure. We don't know when. It could be very soon, it could be, but at the end of the day, you know, this time we have here is impermanent. We're all going to be born and we're all going to die. And there are these beautiful flip sides of the coin. And one of the things I heard when Audrey passed was what was it? It was something like, when a soul is born, we rejoice in laughter and the angels cry. And then when a soul dies, we cry and the angels rejoice to have us come back. And so I guess, like, for me, what helped me so much in having that, in a way, telepathic communication with Audrey when she passed was understanding this beautiful infinity that we are, that we're impermanent, but we're also infinite. You know, we change forms, and it doesn't take the grieving away in the sense that that person, you want to see their smile and their face and their touch, and you miss them. But it definitely brought way more depth into my life, my own life experience, to live more fully.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. For me, it was the most difficult moment in the life, but as well the most beautiful moment in my life, because I am who I am now. And starting with that process, everything changed in my life. I'm a totally different person.
Did you also have that kind of communion that you felt with him outside of his physical body?
I like to think that I'm still having that, and it's more than 6 years. So I like to think, I still feel it, especially when I have difficult moments. I just ask for help, and I feel he's there. So I feel his energy, and that's my belief. So
yeah, it's beautiful. And I don't know, the topic of death, I guess, even especially now when we're living in the world with a pandemic and this, like, we actually don't think about it or know, but people are dying every single day, right? For many, many years. And now there's so much focus on that I don't think it's actually healthy for the psyche of people. Like, what we focus on the news and project, it, like, it grows. So there's this, like, intense fear around this COVID thing that you're going to get. And guess what? I got COVID. I'm so happy I got COVID now because I'm
Really?
like,
So how was it? You have to share with us a little
It was
bit.
awesome, man. You should get it too. No, I'm just kidding. Well,
there are so many theories about it, like, oh my
yeah,
God,
you're
it's terrible.
terrified, right?
It's this fear that, like you mentioned, it is creating all the time.
Well, and that's what we hear usually are the worst. We hear the worst case scenarios too. And I'm not trying to take away from those because I know those exist.
Yeah, for sure.
But for us, I mean, I have a teenager and he brought me home COVID. And they got COVID and they just had like very mild symptoms. Okay. And so we tested them and they were positive. And then I was like, okay, well, I might as well get COVID too, because they were only like sick for maybe 24 hours and not even that bad. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to isolate from you. Come give me a hug and kiss. And then I got COVID too. And it was like feeling, honestly, if I didn't know COVID was going around, I maybe wouldn't even have known. I would have just thought I was really tired. Or I might have said, whoa, I'm feeling lightheaded today. That was all it was for us. And it makes me feel a lot better to know that, well, I'm grateful none of us got extremely sick.
Yeah. But I think it's connected with your healthy lifestyle too, because you're eating healthy.
There's a lot of components. And I listened to this incredible doctor, scientist about this overall genomes that we're all these incredible genomes and micro, like these diverse environment that we live in, right? And we're all living species and there's bacterias, like we're mostly bacterias, and it just made so much sense to think about like the health of our overall planet, like of our mother earth, and these viruses and bacteria that have been around since ancient times, and we actually adapt to them as well. But like the way the pesticides and the air pollution and cutting down our forests and doing all of these things that's creating an imbalance makes a lot of sense why we might be experiencing things like this, to look at our overall health. And I do think having a strong immune system is going to help you through this. Of course, there's all those weird 1 in a million cases that you'll hear of somebody that was extremely healthy, that something bad happened. And that really is life too. There's all like my sister going on her bike, like we didn't know she was going to get hit by a car. So I think changing our relationship to death and not living in this panic of fear, taking care of our health. I mean, America is one of the sickest countries in the world in terms of health, and being on petrochemicals, basically the pharmaceutical industry, eating really bad foods, pesticides. So all of these things, we can't just look at COVID and be like, oh, keep me away from COVID, lock me up. Like, let's think about our overall health of how do we protect ourselves? How do we protect those that are vulnerable? I think definitely we need to care for them, but we need to look at the overall health of the planet, our overall health, so that we can handle and sustain and evolve with these types of things that are coming. But I don't know, I've become pretty passionate that this level of fear and separation has almost become worse than the pandemic virus itself. Yeah,
I agree.
And they say, even the CDC says 97% of people that get it will have mild symptoms, so.
Wow, such a big percent. I didn't know that. Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's actually, most people aren't going to get, but when you start hearing numbers, you're like, whoa. But guess what? When you look at the number of people that die every day or every year, there's a lot of that too, and so, it is part of this cycle. And I hope that we can find ways to get through this, because it's been strange times for everyone.
Super strange. Let's talk a little bit about your amazing platform.
Peace Begins in Me.
Yes. When started this idea, and what is the main idea of it? And tell us more, like when you started to think about creating this platform.
Well, it's actually kind of sad, because it was at least 6 years. it took me that long to get over my fear and self-judgment and all these things. It also took me time. I'm glad I took the time to develop as well, but I went through teacher training for Kundalini yoga about 12 years ago. And I went through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition probably 10 years ago. So I had all this knowledge and tools and experience that was just changed my life. And also being in the fashion industry and so much around beauty and health and what we put in our bodies and in our skin, I wanted to create a platform that was really about this and giving tools. But I was honestly terrified. I was terrified about being seen. I was terrified to use my voice, especially as a model, because I was just a face, right? And there's a lot of stigmas around that as well. Like, oh, you're just a pretty face, you know, it's like, so those are things I had to break through and develop the courage within myself, and also my own capability. I didn't know if I was capable. And now I know what I'm not capable of. I'm really bad with technology. That's like held me back in ways. But now I have somebody on board with me that's now a collaboration that they're excellent at that. So
perfect.
So he's going to be able to help me do all the things I don't know how to do and be able to share my gifts. So now I feel very strongly about doing this because I started with teaching live here on my land, having yoga classes, having women's circles, having these mini kind of workshops. And wow, it's just so moving and so beautiful and so much growth within myself, because I don't ever want to come across like, oh, I'm the teacher, I'm a guru, and get some spiritual ego, because I'm not, you know. I've grown in astronomical ways through my life. I probably have experiences that could help others. I have tools and techniques that I've learned from the ancient yogic sciences that are like, wow, this is cool stuff. And I'm really passionate about it. But I don't ever want to come across as some like, you know, guru person ever. I just want to hold space for others to go within and find that space within themselves, because that's where it's at. Each and every one of us has this within us to just plug in to source and have this connection and experience. So that's what really just stepping into it a year ago and just going for it live was so moving and beautiful to watch people transform and come together and share, and the power of women coming together and being vulnerable and expressing what's going on inside of us. You learn so much because you don't feel so alone. You feel heard and listened to and held. And so, yeah, so now I'm being called, and thank you, COVID, for that, you know, because I probably would have been way longer to finally be like, let's go online. And I just went to Utah last month and I said, okay, let's just record. Let's just do this. I don't have to show anyone. We can throw them away, but let's just see what it feels like. And it felt really, really good. And
so you recorded meditation and yoga classes?
Meditation and yoga classes. Some of them are only like 10 minutes long. Some of them are like 45 minutes long. And yeah, I love doing it. I really do. I love doing it, and I should have at least 3 up on my website here soon, because I have 8 made, and a few of them are introductory kind of teaching about the science, teaching about the techniques, so that when you do the class, you have all of that available. So yeah, I'll have something up very soon, just while we're building, while we're under construction, and we'll see. You know, I heard this really beautiful saying from Guru Jagat. She said, in anything you do in business or whatever, you have to remember the 33% rule, which is 33% of people will love you, 33% of people will not like you at all, and then 33% of people won't care. And that gave me such relief, because it's like, well, of course not everyone's going to want to do this yoga or meditation, but the 33% of people that want to and enjoy it, that's who I'm doing it for.
You can change basically the life of these 33, right? Yeah, 33.
33, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it changed my life. I'm so grateful for my teacher. Her name's Sukhdev Jackson. She was the one that encouraged me to go through teacher training. And, and a lot of these tools are actually, they're ancient, but they're quite simple ways that we can use throughout our day and our daily lives that really help us. It's working with our nervous system, which is, a lot
So
of times
important.
overtaxed or stressed out, and we're having these nervous responses. And then we have this beautiful parasympathetic nervous system that's built in. If we ignite it, then it heals our body and it restores. And the endocrine system we mentioned with the cold showers, you're also stimulating that by focusing at the third eye. That shoots a heat or like a ray to the pineal gland. The pineal gland then decalcifies, secretes, and opens the 10th gate. I mean, this stuff to me is just fascinating, and the energies of the body. And yeah, so
I can't wait, Angela. Really, I can't wait to be part of it. And I'm sure that many others. And it's so much needed now. And you're such an inspiration for so many. So I really hope so. I really hope it will move really fast and we can really join
thank you.
This amazing platform. What is your favorite mantra? Now I start to discover the mantras, and I have to say they are helping me so much.
Aren't they powerful?
They are so powerful.
As a Western world, I think a lot of times we feel weird because it's not part of our upbringing or culture. But when you finally move past that and do them, it's really working with the sound. In my lineage, we call it the nod. And it's the power of frequency and sound that changes our whole structure. And there's even more science when you do the mantra. The tongue is hitting different meridian points on the roof of the mouth that then stimulates the hypothalamus and all these incredible things. But so for me, a lot of times, one of my favorite ones is one of the most simple ones, and it's one I teach a lot in class because it's so simple. It's just, I think the Tibetans in one lineage say Om Soham, and in my lineage they say Ong Sohang, and it just means creative consciousness. I am that. So it's like just vibrating with the creative life force of the cosmos, and so you're just. And because it's so simple, you get in that repetitive just vibration. And I think especially for people that might have a hard time quieting the mind in meditation, I feel that these mantras are really helpful to stop the mind from going.
Yes, I totally agree. I do this especially when I'm so stressed. And I have to say this is working. Like, I have like two more questions. You mentioned the beauty part, but I really want to ask you because I love the way how you describe beauty, and I would love if you can tell us what is beauty for you.
Well, it's so interesting because I've recognized that how we see ourselves is how our beauty is. Like, it's this very interesting thing. I think most women can relate. One day you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, I'm hideous. And you're the same person, but 2 days later you're like, oh, I look pretty good, And so it just goes to show like the way that we're feeling inside or how we're choosing what we're focusing on has such an impact. So I started doing this practice because I think I actually even developed a little bit of dysmorphia being a model. Because you're so focused. So I've had to retrain myself. So what I started doing was instead of looking at my face or looking at my lips or looking at something that, is imperfect, I look into my eyes now, and I look deep into my eyes and I look at my soul. And I just say like something nice to myself, like I love you, or, whether it's quietly or out loud. And I try to focus on that more. And that's changed the way I look at myself. And I mean, beauty really is this resonance. It's this resonance, this energy that we carry, and really in our grace, this grace that we carry and this light that we carry. And I think obviously there's so many different shapes of noses and lips and this and that, and everybody's got different beautiful characteristics, but it's really our inner light that makes us beautiful.
I love it. I love it so much, and especially because you saw that part of the beauty, the fashion industry and everything, and to really have this as a, as the definition of beauty, I think it's so powerful, and I loved it. The last question, for the ones that they want to make a big change in their life, or they are in the transition time, can you please give them some advices? Because we have so many, and especially with the whole time that we are now, things are changing.
Yeah.
What if you have to give them like one or two advices, or I don't know, whatever you think it's so powerful for that they can use?
Well,
what will be?
I'll say very simply two things. Two things would be becoming aware of the thoughts and stories that we tell ourselves. And there's a really simple exercise that we do at some of our workshops where we write these out. So we write out whatever these old thought forms are, or stories or ideas that are not serving us. Like, you just write it in one sentence and you get it all out on paper. Then you go back and you look at that sentence and you find a way to reframe that into a new statement that you believe. So say you wrote down, I'm fat, and that's a story you keep telling yourself. You wouldn't necessarily write down, I'm skinny, because you don't believe that, but you could rewrite, I have the capability to invest into my body and my life, or whatever. So I think it's creating new neural pathways, really. And when we keep telling ourselves and these thoughts over and over again, that's what shapes our world. And especially when we're in a low place, or we're in a place where we want to bring in change, or I think that becoming aware and really looking at these things we keep telling ourselves is really important. So that would be one. But then we also, like, what if our minds are out of control and we can't get them to stop? That's where I'd say is finding that daily practice where you can sit with your soul. And I love working with light energy, right? I feel there's a lot of unseen aspects of ourselves that we don't see with our two eyes. But when we close our eyes and look with our inner eye, we're these incredible light beings. So kind of taking time to charge with light through our hands, through our crown, into our heart, and breathing in the soothing love and light that's available to us. I think that can be really supportive if you're going through a time of grieving, or a time of feeling lost or confused, or feeling low or down on yourself. Really connecting with that higher aspect of your being and all of life energy that's beyond all these social constructs and ideas can give you that energy and charge you, and to get your mind quiet, and then to really look and spend time looking at those thought forms and belief systems that a lot of times aren't real, but they're dominating our lives.
I love it.
We believe them. Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you, Angela. I think what you are doing, it's so necessary and it's so beautiful. I wish you all the best and good luck with all your future projects, especially with a project that I know you care so much, which is called Peace Begin in Me. That was the mother, the model, the actress, yogi and doula, Angela Lindvall. For more inspiring interviews like Angela's, head it over to the iTunes podcast or subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have so many more surprises coming soon. If you liked today's show, please share it with your friends, family, and community. I'm Crina Okumus, and you've been listening to the Live Podcast.